Hey, Chief, this is Jeff.
Commissioner Byrd, yes, sorry.
I think we have a quorum, so let's get the meeting started. And I'm sure the other commissioners, they were in the hearing. They'll be here quickly.
Yes, Commissioner Fishman called me on my mobile, and I'm going to email him the call-in information.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that,
Yep.
let's open the meeting, get it recording.
Okay, one second. Press record. We're good to go, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you, Chief. This is Commissioner Byrd, acting chair until Commissioner Fishman gets logged in, which will be momentarily. Can I get one of the commissioners to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, Commissioner Espinoza.
Thank you.
Consideration approval of the agenda.
I
make
do
a
believe
motion.
that there is a change to the agenda. Mike Smith, if you're on, could you please indicate the change?
Thank you, Commissioner. I was unmuting myself. Commissioners, I would request actually that we take case 20-00181 off the agenda for this week. We'll bring it back next week.
Okay,
So I'll
can you
move
state
to
the
approve as
title, please?
submitted.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if there was a question there.
Yeah,
Well, Michael Smith, you indicated the case number. So I know you probably had communications with certain commissioners. I need to know the title of the case.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner. That is in the matter of the formal complaint of Windy Joe Ashworth against Running Bear Rescue DBA Rocky Mountain EMS. And actually, there are two cases. It's also case 20-00187 TREN in the matter of the formal complaint of David Killinger against Running Bear Rescue DBA Rocky Mountain EMS.
Thank you, Michael. So I made a motion. I believe Commissioner Espinoza seconded that.
yes. Okay, so motion to accept the agenda as amended has been moved and seconded. Mr. Smith, can you take roll call?
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
and Commissioner Fishman, is he on?
Aye.
Commissioners, the agenda is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Mike, and I yield the floor to Chairman Fishman.
Well, Jeff, you're doing so good. Do you mind just continuing to run the meeting?
No, I don't mind,
Go
but
ahead.
it isn't my job, sir. I appreciate it. No, it's your job. Thank you, though.
Okay. Consideration and approval of prior meeting minutes.
Move to approve as
moved.
submitted.
So we've
I'll
got
second.
Valerie motioning and Jeff seconding. Mike, take the vote.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioners, the minutes of October 7th, 2020 are approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you.
Item 4, introduction of special guests.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jason.
Yes.
Jason, I would like to yield the floor to Jim Williamson. Jim, if you could please unmute yourself. I think you wanted to make an announcement regarding the new hire. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. ASD would like to formally introduce and welcome Michael Braniff. He goes by Mike as the new PRC Fleet and Procurement Manager. Mike has financial experience at both the local and state government level, and we look forward to working with him as part of our AST team. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Chairman, that's all I had.
Terrific. Next item, public comment. Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Chairman, that hasn't been anybody signed up for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Consent action items.
I'll move, Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent, and there's several items on there, so I can either read them or Mike Smith can normally proceed.
I'll second that.
And I will second that.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, and Mike, we'll take your dulcet tones to read this.
The consent action items for voting are case 20-00176-TREN in the matter of the application of Lincoln County Board of Commissioners, DBA Lincoln County Ambulance for reissuance of certificate number 12341 and temporary authority to provide ambulance service. Case 20-00179-TRM in the matter of the application of Roots Transportation LLC for a certificate to provide non-emergency medical transport service. Case 20-00188 UT in the matter of the joint application of Arroyo Solar LLC and Arroyo Energy Storage LLC for location approval of the Arroyo Solar and Storage Facilities and associated GenTie facilities in McKinley County, New Mexico, pursuant to NMSA 62.9. Case 19-00349 UT in the matter of El Paso Electric Company's application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct, own, operate generating unit 6 at the Newman Generating Station, and case 18-00103 UT in the matter of the filing of applications for broadband program support from the State Rural Universal Service Fund as per Rule 1711-1031 NMAC. And I will call the roll. Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
I believe you're muted, Commissioner Hall.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, aye.
Commissioner Espinoza.
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Aye.
And Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioners, the consent action items on the agenda have been approved by a vote of 5-0.
Item 7, regular action items. Hans, we've got in the matter of the formal complaint.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we took that off the agenda.
Oh, okay. And I assume we did the same for item 7.
No, that is.
Nope. Okay, so we're going to item 7. And this is the application of Duncan Valley Electric Cooperative. And we've got Anthony and Hans.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Fishman. Good morning, commissioners. On July 20th, 2020, Duncan Valley Electric Cooperative, DVEC, requested approval and authorization to issue a secured promissory note in the principal amount of $1 million to the National Rural Utilities Cooperative Finance Corporation, CFC, and also authorization to enter a mortgage with CFC to secure the note, to enter a loan and agreement with CFC for a loan in principal amount of $1 million from CFC to the cooperative, to be granted any other authorizations for evidence of indebtedness for the loan documents, to issue an outstanding promissory note to CFC in the principal amount of $475,099 dated December 18th, 2013, and enter an outstanding December 18th, 2013 loan agreement as though it was approved retroactively in 2013 before issue, and be granted any other authorizations for indebtedness necessary for the 2013 loan and agreement. This matter was assigned to hearing examiner Medeiros on July 20th, 2020. On September 14th, 2020, the hearing examiner issued an order regarding stipulation, memorializing the parties' agreement reached during a September 9th status conference, agreeing to extend the commission deadline to act on the application to October 28th, 2020. It should be noted that this application is unopposed. Therefore, the recommended decision was filed by hearing examiner Medeiros on September 29th, recommending that the commission grants the relief requested in the application and authorizing DVEC to execute the loan agreement and mortgage agreement and issue the promissory note to the CFC. DVEC is authorized to take any other action as may be legally appropriate and necessary to consummate the authorizations. DVEC is authorized to use the proceeds from the loan agreement for the purpose of discharging DVEC's utility obligations, and DVEC 2013 financing transactions shall be deemed approved by the commission nunc pro tunc to before issuance and execution. The parties waived their exceptions to the recommended decision. Therefore, I've put before you a proposed order which would incorporate and approve the recommended decision. It should be noted that I will tweak the proposed order just a little bit. Just this morning, hearing examiner Medeiros filed a notice of errata correcting some typos and non-substantive grammatical errors in the recommended decision. So I will include a line that the commission would be approving the recommended decision, including the corrections filed in the errata. Otherwise, I would ask the commission move the order as amended. If there are any questions regarding the substantive materials of this, I have hearing examiner Medeiros online for any questions.
I'll move the agenda as amended, sir.
I'll second
I'll
that.
second.
Well, guess there's not a lot to talk about. Please take the roll, Mike.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioners, case the proposed order adopting the recommended decision of the hearing examiner in case 20-00149 UT is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Item 8, in the matter of the rulemaking to prohibit discontinuation of residential utility service. Judith, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. We just concluded the public hearing on this matter, which is coming before you. It's rulemaking that was by commission order August 5th, 2020, notice of proposed rulemaking to promulgate permanent amendments to rule 17.9.560.12G, 17.10.650.11G, and 17.12.760.9 NMAC to prohibit the discontinuation of residential customer public utility service during the time period of the governor's executive health orders related to the COVID-19 pandemic. As I stated, we just concluded the public hearing. There is a proposed order, and let me explain the options that the commission has at this time. There have been extensive comments by the utilities and by community organizations, and the commission could choose to postpone this matter until next week to fully consider all the comments and come back with a proposed order. That being said, if the commission would like to issue an order today, as soon as possible, the proposed order in your packet would incorporate staff's comments and as well as a modification to provide more flexibility as requested by several of the utilities. In particular, paragraph 9 would adopt staff's requested changes regarding Rule 410 and prohibit the nullification by Rule 410. There was a possible conflict between that. It would say irrespective of the provisions of Rule 410, and then it would go on with the language of the various rules. So I would recommend that the commission adopt staff's language regarding Rule 410. In addition, we are proposing that the comments provided by the utilities requesting more flexibility were reasonable. Therefore, the proposed amendments were modified to include language to provide that the commission is authorized by order to prohibit disconnections of residential service in general anytime the governor issues any emergency health order under the Public Health Emergency Response Act and the All Hazards Emergency Management Act, rather than only during the COVID-19 emergency order situation. This avoids writing a momentary occurrence into a permanent rule and provides flexibility in adjusting the application of the rule as conditions of change. And it could also allow the commission to address future emergencies. That being said, for your information, I can read to you the way that the rule would read if you adopt this order, adopting the rule. And that is, hold on, let me open it up. So I'm reading from it's Rule 760, but Rule 560 would be the same. And then in the water, I'll read you what the water would sound like. It says, irrespective of any conflict with 17.5.410 NMAC, so that would fix the 410 situation. The following rules regarding disconnection of residential utility service may be implemented on a temporary basis by order of the commission for a period of time up to and including the duration of any emergency executive order issued by the governor of New Mexico pertaining to a public health or other emergency condition under the Public Health Emergency Response Act and the All Hazards Emergency Management Act. And the following rules may be implemented and so this would require another order by the commission. All utilities may be prohibited from disconnecting residential service for non-payment during the time period the emergency executive orders are in effect. B, any late fees on residential accounts that would be incurred during the time period of the effectiveness of the emergency executive orders may be required to be waived. C, utilities may be permitted to temporarily close in-person bill payment locations, provided the utility provides notice to residential customers of such closures and identifies in such notice how payment may be made, including electronically or by mail. In the event of the closure of an in-person bill payment location, utilities shall be permitted to continue to collect credit card or bank fees in accordance with their own commission-approved and filed tariffs. D, medical certificates set to expire shall not expire for the duration of the effectiveness of any emergency executive order and may be automatically extended for 90 days from the end of any emergency executive order. And E, this would take care of a concern that the utilities had about disconnecting for other reasons. Such E says that irrespective of this rule, public utilities are not prohibited from disconnecting service to residential customers due to A, an emergency, B, safety, or C, a request to disconnect from the residential customer. So that would be the language that could be adopted today. And then the commission also would then have the option of issuing a second order pertaining to how long they want the COVID-19 prohibition on disconnection to remain. And in terms of the water rule, it is worded similarly, so I won't repeat that. And I stand for questions at this point. As I said, the commission could decide to discuss this, bring it back another date, or adopt this rule and then adopt a second order.
So we're open for discussion.
Mr. Chair, this is Jeff.
Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, did you say that the residents could ask for a disconnect? That was an exception that you listed?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that right.
Yes. Three situations: safety, emergency, and request by the customer.
Okay, makes sense. I just want to make sure I heard that as an exception. So my only concern with this is that I do believe the smaller companies have legitimate concern. They expect these bills to pay, these monthly payments to pay for their salary and materials needed to keep their utility in operation. And they're running out of cash flow as well. And so giving them the option to contact late payers or no payers and work out a payment plan, I think is a good thing. You know, some payments maybe will be zero, but sometimes just getting $20, $25 from them helps keep the company whole. And that's another thing we have to consider. I know that we all look at the big companies and think, well, they got millions of dollars, they can float it for a while. And that's probably absolutely true. But some of these small companies, they don't have a big pool of cash, and they rely on that monthly bill to operate the company. And so I want to make sure that we're not forgetting the little guys while we're doing these rules, and make it so that every company is made whole or not allowed to collapse because of a rule that we make, because we don't know how long this is going to go on. As it said in the hearing, and as we know in the news, you know, this is coming back around. So we could be in this for a year or better. And that's long enough to kill a company, you know. And so I want to make sure that we have language in there that helps companies stay active, because if they go under, where are you getting your water from? Where are you getting your gas from? Where are you getting your electricity from if you don't have a company to deliver it?
Any other comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Espinosa. I think that I'm ready to implement. I don't think it needs to be postponed much longer, especially because we were listening this morning, and I think some changes have been made where it includes all public health and not just COVID. So I think we may as well proceed with the implementation today. I don't think there's, much more than we can see or hear.
Thank you. Other
Mr. Chair.
comment?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hall.
So I appreciate what Commissioner Byrd was saying. I think that's probably a concern in a state like ours where we have a lot of small businesses. But I also agree with Commissioner Espinosa that we are in a position, I think, to move forward. And with the changes that Judy's made, I think that I'd be ready to vote. And I don't think that those changes will compromise Commissioner Byrd's concerns, because I think, I don't know, I can speak for myself, but from what I know of the other commissioners, I know they share his concern for, people of lower means in our state, whether they're just plain consumers or small business owners. So I believe we have a sufficient flexibility to be able to, in the future, if need be, protect companies in that position and still I guess what I'm trying to say is I think we could examine each utility situation individually. So I believe with that, I would just like to say I'd be ready to move forward to vote today.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listening to the public comment period this morning, I think that's a clear indication that people are trying to put food on the table. Electricity bills are not being paid. So I agree with my fellow commissioners that we need to make a decision, and I would like to move forward on this, and I'm ready to vote.
I'll make the motion. We didn't make a motion, but
it.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, I'd like to before we vote, ask a couple of questions, Judith. I share Commissioner Byrd's concerns, and I just want to be sure that we're flexible enough in the orders that if a utility is about to go under, that we can provide some relief.
Right.
That we're not just putting these people out on the edge of a cliff. So could you please comment on that, Judith?
Yes, the proposed order would adopt a rule that says that the commission will implement another temporary order. So you would be able to specify, if you do that today or next week, things of that nature, like the utility could apply for some sort of waiver, and it sounds like that's what you're suggesting. Or the order, if I were to bring it back next week, could state that the utilities are required to work out payment plans and how long the payment plans should be. I mean, so it gives you a lot of flexibility. The other thing is it also could be temporary in nature, in the sense that you could just continue the moratorium until January 1st and just use this time period between now and then to work out those types of, more details. So right now, this would just give you the rule that would enable you to, by subsequent order, get more specific in terms of how long, what kind of variances would be allowed, et cetera. And I
Okay.
could bring that back next week, or we could adopt an order today that said, we're just going to continue the same moratorium till January 1, and we're going to work on figuring out details between now and January 1.
Okay.
That
Thank
probably
you.
makes
So I
better
gave you a
sense,
lot of
Mr. Chair.
options.
Thank you. That's
There's a lot of options.
That's
Yeah.
the key. Okay, my concerns are satisfied. Any other comments before we go to a vote?
Commissioner, this
Mr. Chair,
Smith.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to comment that part of the reason that we did this change is because the original proposed rule effectively was carrying forward the emergency provisions, the provisions rather of the emergency rule that was adopted earlier this year. And if we had made that a permanent rule, it would have that would have locked the commission into those provisions until it was able to conduct a subsequent rulemaking. And even if the commission, or rather that rule was rendered obsolete by the governor lifting the executive orders, which would have specified the duration, it would have basically been a dead rule sitting in our rules that we would have had to do a rulemaking to remove later in time. So by providing a general framework for the commission to issue an order addressing these issues, it provides the commission the flexibility to respond to changing conditions under these executive orders and without having to go through another rulemaking process.
Right. And my observation would be that this really does respond to a lot of the technical concerns that various commenters, particularly the utilities, raised that were legitimate. And so I think General Counsel's done a good job and Brad, you guys have all done a good job of addressing those legitimate concerns. So thank you.
So I would just also point out that because of the Rules Act, the Records Act, this order, if it was adopted today, would actually have to be submitted to the Records Department and would not be effective until November 10th, which is their next publication date. So the commission has time between now and November 10th to issue basically an order, consider and issue an order that would be issued pursuant to this rule, addressing the specific COVID-19 situation.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready for a vote. So Michael, please call the roll.
Commissioner Byrd,
No.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
and Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
The proposed rule is adopted by a vote of 4-1. Commissioner Byrd voting no.
Commissioner Byrd, do you want to make any comments on what drives your no vote?
Sure. Far too often I've seen things passed under the guise that we'll fix. We know it's not perfect, but we'll fix it in the future. And then that never really happens either. I'd rather fix it and pass something I like, that we all like, which we normally do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So Judith, it seems like we have a follow-up that we need to do here about whether there's an order that we want to just extend. You made a suggestion, extend to January 1st. Do commissioners have any proposals they want to make here?
Commissioner Fishman, as Michael Smith just stated, this rule will be effective on November 8th. So
Okay.
we would need to issue an order as of that date. At this point in time, we probably would not be issuing the order, but you're right, there is this gap in time now about what the utilities should do between now and November 8th. I think we could issue an order today stating that as of the effective date of the rule, and then just take a leap of faith that the utilities would comply between now and November 8th.
Comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I think it would be useful to include that those that can afford to start paying a portion, I don't think that's written anywhere that would, because I know the utilities are still billing whether you're making the payment or not, and it sounds like they're getting deeper in the hole, but maybe the customers could be given an opportunity to include some sort of payment plan, even if it meant just sustaining, just paying a very small portion just to show a good faith effort also for those that can still afford it, because maybe, while there are many people that cannot, and I believe that too, especially in rural New Mexico, that cannot afford to pay because they've lost their job. But I also feel like we always have to strike that balance to keep the utility afloat. So, as they bill these people, maybe just encourage some sort of form of payment, just whether it be a percent or however much, but to include that ability somewhere in there where, they could afford, those that can afford to make a payment can, or they should, try to maintain some sort of level of, staying connected, because nothing is for free. We know that. But right now we have a reason to implement this moratorium, but we've got to also be fair and somehow include that ability for them to try to start collecting some from those that can at least try to afford to make a small payment.
Other comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Go ahead.
I would like the utility companies to do an educational effort for their customers, whether it's by virtual, by radio announcements, or just to have social distancing, small meetings in all the towns and all the communities in New Mexico. They should start making an effort and make a plan. They cannot submit their comments to the commission asking that, the company is falling way behind on financial basis. That's not the only avenue. Let's make the utilities companies work with their customers like never before. Pandemic is history making, and we may be in this situation for the next 12 months, 15 months, 18 months. So utilities, they need to get out to certain communities and find a place. I know that certain companies near Gallup, they have handouts. They set up a table for 2 hours. They have prior announcements so that they can educate their customers what's going on, what they can do, what the options are. So that is my take on that. I would like to get some feedback from the utility companies on that, and maybe they can contact Judy to see if they can be able to work that into the order that we're going to adopt in the near future.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I think Judy's suggestion has merit. I'd like her to maybe explain a little bit further why we need to take a leap of faith. I would think the utilities would continue with the status quo. Can you go into that a little bit more, Judy?
Yes, Commissioner Hall. We had an emergency rule in place prohibiting disconnections, and it expired 120 days after March 18th. That's why we started the rulemaking on August 5th to make those that emergency rule into a permanent rule. Between the date those emergency rules expired and the present, the utilities have done a variety of things as indicated by their written comments and their oral comments. It sounds like in general, and this is very in general, the utilities have tried to work with customers and have intended to not disconnect. Although I don't have any specific information regarding whether or not they actually have disconnected anyone. They have stated in their pleadings and at their oral comments that their intention is to work with customers. That being said, there is no rule in place, and this rule will get published in the Register on November 8th. So until that happens, there is no authority in law that the commission has that states you're not allowed to disconnect during COVID. But this rule will enable us to issue an order, and we can say that the order is effective as of the date of the rule. So basically between now and that date, utilities are doing what they've been doing since the emergency rule expired, and that's a variety of different things.
Okay, I guess that's what I thought. I didn't think it meant there was going to be any change in what the utilities have been doing since it expired. So I just didn't know why you said a leap of faith, because
I think we've been in this leap of faith since the emergency rule expired, and it will continue until this is published in the Register on November 8th.
Okay, that's fine. That confirms what I thought was going on. Okay, great. Thanks.
I think just listening to all the commissioners, it sounds like what we want to do, and I'll just make this as a proposal, is that we do want to extend the moratorium. I think January 1st till January 1st, with our order taking effect beginning November 8th. But in that time period, I think we need some more discussion with the utilities, and particularly in the shorter run with the smaller utilities, so that this discussion is ongoing and we don't find ourselves creating future traps for ourselves or the customers. I believe that we do need to continue the moratorium. I would also suggest that for that period till November 8th, that we ask the utilities to report on any involuntary disconnections that they've had to impose. Just so we're keeping track of that. I do think the utilities are acting in good faith. I think they, did the moratorium before we ever suggested it. They brought it to us first, which was terrific. And, I think we should keep working collaboratively with them to see how we can, improve this going forward. This certainly isn't the last of it. So we may want to, Judy, set up some ongoing meetings or workshops, whatever's appropriate, to be sure we're addressing these issues as they come up. So thoughts, Judy, on that?
Yes. So would you like me to bring back an order for next week, or are you trying to propose an order for today?
Well, could we still do, could we still get it for November 8th if we do this next week? And you have some time to think it through and draw up something that you've been able to give a little thought to?
Yes, that sounds like a plan.
Other commissioners, what are your thoughts on that?
They haven't changed. I think we've already voted and we need to just, implement what we're going to today and bring back any other information next week if that's what Judy wants to do. But I think we just implement and extend it.
So we can do that piece of it today. And Judy, we can catch up with the rest of the elements next week.
Yes,
Right.
that would work. We could do an order today, just extending the emergency provisions of the emergency rules until January 1. And then next week, work on a few of the more details about working with customers and applying for waivers due to hardship of a small rural electric.
Perfect.
So do I have a motion on that?
So
I
moved.
thought we had already voted.
We already have a
voted
motion,
on
I'm sorry.
This motion would be for an order as referenced by the rule that you already passed, an order just extending the COVID-19 emergency moratorium until January 1.
Right.
So I'll move the order to extend it to January 1, and all we need is a second.
And I will second.
This is Michael Smith. I just wanted to point out that because the rule itself, I don't know if you can hear me. The rule will be submitted to the records, state records, on October 29th for publication on November 10th. Therefore, and that will be published in issue 21 of the New Mexico Register. Therefore, the commission's order, if it issues an order today, would only be effective on November 10th.
Understood.
Mr. Chair,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chair, I have a question for Michael Smith.
Yes.
Mike, so the order that we voted on today, we extended the rules, but we still need to vote on the time limit. Is that correct?
The order that was passed today adopted a rule that provides that the commission may alter its other rules regarding disconnection in the event that there are emergency situations that arise under the two emergency acts that give the governor the authority to issue executive orders. So it gives the commission the authority through its rulemaking to take action by order rather than having to do an emergency rule the way we did back in March, because there was not a provision in our rules to adopt changes to the disconnection rules that we have. So what this requires, what we're addressing now, would be a rule that would, an order that would issue from the commission addressing the particulars of the COVID-19 emergency that is currently pending. Since the emergency rules that we adopted earlier in the year have expired already.
What about the time? So we're ready to make a decision on the time between now and January 1st, 2021. Can we go beyond January 2021?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Commissioner Fishman and Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, the Commission has a wide variety of actions it can take. There have been suggestions in the comments that the Commission should not issue any kind of, moratorium on disconnections, but should adopt more flexible provisions that were suggested by the utilities. Conversely, there have been public comments that were suggested that the Commission should issue continue the moratorium through the expiration of the of the governor's executive orders that are out there. It was pointed out that the executive orders have been essentially changing over time. I forget the number we're up to. I think 47 or something different orders have been issued. So the idea of by doing this by order rather than through rule, it provides the Commission the flexibility to, to change its rule, any moratorium it does adopt, if it chooses to reflect the changing conditions that are out there, and the needs of the public and the needs of the utilities.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just to clarify, Mike, I think Commissioner Aguilar was asking a good question, and that is, so we come to January 1st, we could at that time decide to extend the moratorium further if that's what we needed to do. And that could be something that would take effect immediately.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, so we have total flexibility to extend it at any time under this new structure that we've adopted under the new rule.
That's correct.
Yes, that the order and the rule are written so that the Commission every month could change depending on the changing situation of the governor's emergency orders.
Okay, any further discussion? So Michael, call the roll.
Commissioner Byrd. Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, could you make the motion clear so that I would know how to draft the order?
So the motion is, and Valerie, why don't you state the motion here?
Okay, so the motion is what has been written or submitted by Judy with the discussion of revisiting it in January 1. That's probably not very clear, but it's the order that she's prepared already, with the exception of allowing. Go ahead.
You would like an extension of the emergency rule, which prohibited disconnection.
Right, we all would until January 1. I wouldn't want to see anything, even past next year because you don't know. So anyhow, so is that motion clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we change it to say, or until the governor's, just in case, emergency actions end? Because if she ends it earlier, which we don't foresee that happening, but
yeah, I don't have a problem with that personally. Other commissioners?
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm sure we're just wasting ink, but I appreciate it.
So why don't we add that?
So granted.
Okay. So Judy, can you add that language, and then we'll just vote on that as one rather than Valerie's suggestion and amend. That seems like a waste of time. So let's just get it all in on this one vote.
Commissioners, There is one issue, which is, I'm trying to pull up the calendar here. January 1st is typically not a day that, so the order would expire on a day when the commission would not be available to address it. And
So what's
our
the
last
date of the
meeting
next?
before, our last meeting before that, January 1st, I believe, is the 16th. And I'll thank John Reynolds for pointing this out to me.
How about we go to the first meeting after January 1st?
That would be January 6th.
And then we would have a new commissioner on board for when we would consider what we want to do from there.
Or two. That's fine.
Or two. That's correct.
January 6th.
We gonna vote?
Okay, do we have, Judy, do you have that all down?
Yes, I do, actually. I'm recording you so I can play it back.
Very good. Okay, so Michael, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
and Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
The motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Terrific. Okay, we're going now to item number 9 in the matter of the verified petition of Continental Divide Electric Cooperative. Russell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this is in the matter of Continental Divide Electric Co-op's petition for designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier, or ETC. The petition, Continental Divide's petition, requested ETC designation for the purpose of applying for this year's broadband program application cycle, as well as for participation in the federal Lifeline and state Lifeline programs. This matter was bifurcated as other similar matters, such as the Kit Carson ETC petition case and the Sierra Communications petition case, were bifurcated so that there was a first phase, which involved only the petition's request for designation as an ETC for purposes of broadband program funding. So there was a hearing held on the first phase regarding ETC designation for broadband program funding. That hearing was held on October 7th. I presided as the hearing examiner in that hearing. There were 3 parties to this matter: Continental Divide itself, staff of the Telecommunications Bureau of the Commission, and the New Mexico Exchange Carrier Group. The hearing went very quickly as there were no points of contention among the 3 parties. Staff was satisfied that Continental Divide had met all applicable requirements for broadband program ETC designation. Therefore, at the end of the hearing, I stated my intention to issue an RD recommending that the commission grant the designation, and I asked the parties if they would waive exceptions, which they did. This was, as you recall, the procedure that was used for the first phase of the Sierra Communications petition, and I believe the second phase of Kit Carson's petition. So I went ahead and issued an RD, doing so on, what was the RD's date? Well, I issued an RD that recommends to the commission granting the first phase of the petition, and there were no exceptions filed, as exceptions were waived. And so I've also prepared for the commission an order that would fully adopt the RD and grant Continental Divide the designation as an ETC for broadband program participation. With that, I'll take any questions.
I would move that order, but I'm sure there'll be discussion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion from Commissioner Espinosa, a second from Commissioner Hall. Any further discussion?
Aye.
Mike? Doesn't sound like there's any further discussion, so Mike, please call the roll.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Aye. Aye again.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
and Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioners, the potential order, the order adopting the first phase recommended decision in case 20-00127 is adopted by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, on to item 10, the applications for the 2021 Broadband Support Program. Russell, you're still on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. So as you will recall, this matter has been on it was on the previous open meeting agenda. And at the previous open meeting, there was a lengthy discussion with regard to how to, among the commissioners, with regard to how to prioritize the applications, because as you will recall, there are about $16.1 million worth of applications. In other words, what they request altogether is 16.1 million, a little over that. But as I have informed the commission, with projections for next year's fund and staying within the $30 million statutory cap, there's a projected $13.9 million available. So as I pointed out in the emails that I've been sending the commission, the email string of 3 emails that I sent yesterday, and I informed the commission that that really would be essentially my memo because it had all the information you needed. The commission will need to go through the list of applications and deny at least $2,232,972 worth of projects in order to stay within the $13.9 million limit. At last week's open meeting, or last week or the week before, the commission decided that if, in terms of how to prioritize the projects, first, the commission would ask staff of the Telecom Bureau to divide the projects into those that serve unserved areas, as defined in our rule, and those that would serve underserved areas. And the spreadsheet that I provided to the commission last week, the revised spreadsheet by Eugene is fantastic. It does that. First, there's a list of those projects that serve unserved areas. And as I noted in my email, those projects, that first list of projects, also includes projects that serve both unserved and underserved areas. So there are some that are combined, but they went into that first total. So the amount total for the project serving unserved areas, as you can see from that revised spreadsheet by Eugene, is about $8.8 million. So if the commission decides to grant all of those, then the commission might proceed then to the list of the projects that serve only underserved areas. And that could be where the commission might begin eliminating the approximately $2.2 million of projects that are in that category. The commission had also discussed in the open meeting further criteria for determining which projects to eliminate. And the commission discussed prioritizing those projects that serve students who have, of course, as everyone knows, have to are being educated from home via the internet all across the state. Prioritize those as something that's obviously very urgent, as opposed to projects that don't. As I noted in my email to the commission, what Eugene has done in both lists is indicate with asterisks in column F which projects would serve students. And he included every project that serves a residential area because it's assumed that there will be at least some young people, students in some of those households that need access to the internet for education. There were only two projects in the underserved list that don't have two asterisks next to them. CenturyLink's, they're both CenturyLink projects that would serve business customers specifically and solely. So you see in line 31, CenturyLink's Aztec Main Exchange project. I'm sorry, CenturyLink's Santa Teresa Exchange project. And at line 35, CenturyLink's Santa Teresa Exchange border crossing. Those are identified as serving only business customers. And then finally, the third criterion that was discussed by the commission for prioritization was the cost per customer of each of the projects. And Eugene has very helpfully not only provided that cost per customer served as column C, but he has arranged both lists in terms of increasing cost per customer served. So you can see like if we look at the underserved list of underserved projects, it begins with Windstream, a Windstream project with a cost of $58.67 per customer served, and goes all the way up to a Plateau Telecommunications project, East Clovis, that is $4,913 per customer served. So this spreadsheet provides some is very helpful in helping the commission arrange those priorities and find out how to get near to that $13.9 million in a way that makes sense to the commission. And I know that some commissioners I've already discussed with some commissioners there some proposals this morning. So I'm just going to, at this point, hand it over to the commission, Mr. Chairman, and for any commissioners to discuss what proposals they have.
So we're open for discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Hall, you're on mute.
Right, sorry. So I had proposed that we eliminate the two CenturyLink projects that did not have the educational provisions that we needed. I also disallowed in my proposal the Picacho Road project of Penasco Valley Co-op, because it was, even though it's an unserved area, it served a small number of people relative to a lot of other projects, and it was an extreme outlier in terms of cost per customer served. So to me, it was $106,000 a person cost or something per customer, which is just far beyond any of the other projects. So to me, it just seemed like, not a conscientious or responsible way of allocating our scarce dollars that we have to dole out. So, and then the remaining disallowances I assigned to the underserved list, starting at the bottom where the cost per customer served was the highest and moving upward. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me. I don't remember the name of the company where I stopped, but Russell could tell you that because I sent that to him.
Yes, I'm looking at that spreadsheet. So, so just to recap, if you add first that Penasco project that was mentioned, Penasco Valley, that's about $1.2 million. I'm just adding them up as they go. And then the two projects, the CenturyLink project, Santa Teresa projects that were for business customers, that is $32,625 and $31,500. And then, so if we start then at the bottom of the underserved list with Plateau's East Covas Trail project. That had the highest cost per customer in that category. That it would add 283,753. I'm actually adding these as I go just to, oops, I think I made a math mistake there. I'm sorry. I'll just say where it ends. Where's she in this? I'm sorry. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. So yes. So under Commissioner Hall's proposal, the bottom three projects would be eliminated as well. La Plateau Telecommunications Project, East Clovis, 283,753. The Baca Valley Project, Kennedy Road, 48,655. And then the CenturyLink Tucumcari Project, 250,501. And that gets us, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to re-add that again. I just made a mistake to make sure we have that. But Commissioner Hall had added that up and gotten a little over 2.2, a little over the 2,232,000. Is that correct, Commissioner Hall? By adding those projects together for elimination, that meets the target and exceeds it by a small amount, I believe. Is that what you said, Commissioner Hall?
But you only needed 2 million, not 3. Cut.
2,232,000. And I let me add it up myself, but Commissioner Hall had added it up herself as well. So let me just make sure I get this right.
Cynthia, you are on mute if you're trying to comment.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Were you able to hear me a moment ago?
No.
Oh, I think my phone.
We did hear what you proposed, but if you said anything after that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no, I was trying to talk, but I had my spreadsheet up then and it made a difference. So what I was trying to say is after you exclude those three companies in the unserved list, then I think there's about $25,000 left in our account that goes dispersed.
The 3 at the bottom and the 2 that were for business customers only are excluded. Correct.
Yes.
The business customers?
The 2 CenturyLink projects with no education component. The very large unserved project which is called Picacho Road, those are excluded.
Right.
If you go to the underserved list and start at the bottom,
right,
moving upward and eliminate, I think 3 companies and 3 projects, and there's $25,000 left in our account approximately.
And Russell's making the final calculations.
Yeah, let's see here.
Russell, which are the business accounts again?
Those are the 2. Santa
It's
Teresa.
CenturyLink Santa Teresa Exchange border crossing, which is
Correct.
a total project of $42,000, and it's also CenturyLink's Santa Teresa Exchange Earhart Way project, which has a total project cost of $43,500.
Thank you.
And I answered that simply because Russell was
correct.
trying to do some math.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, Commissioner Hall, maybe I didn't get my math right, but when I added up the $1.2 million Penasco Valley project, the two CenturyLink Santa Teresa projects, and the bottom 3 projects on the underserved list, I only get $1.8 million. I must be missing something.
Yeah, that can't be right because the Penasco thing is $1.2 million.
Right, and then let's see here, 1.2, and then the 2 CenturyLink business customer projects are fairly small, 36,250, I think, and 31,500, and then at the bottom, those 3 projects, at the bottom only request 250,501, 283,753, and then 48,655. So 1.8 sounds about right. So we need to cut something more. In order above that.
Okay, now you'll have to look at the proposal I sent you because I'm afraid if I put up my spreadsheet, I don't know, it seemed to do something with my volume. I'll try it again, but
Yeah, I'm looking at the spreadsheet and it is just as you described. You are only eliminating, I don't know how, I'm not how.
I don't know. It came out to
What else was
Did
eliminated?
you get the Plateau Telecommunications, Russell?
correct and
Yes,
Baca Valley.
That was 283,000. So I'm trying to see how this added up. It did. Jeez. I don't know. I just.
Well, if we just go ahead and do the bottom four,
Should cover
then we
it.
get to 2.6 million.
Yep.
And we would have money then to actually throw back in the 2 CenturyLinks that we were talking about taking out.
Well, why would we do
Because they're
that?
actually,
That
well,
doesn't-
they're small projects. And I'm not saying that, I do agree that residential and school is more important than business, but business is important too. And we have the funding to do those 2 projects. If we go with the bottom 4 on that list, we're still well within our budget, and we get those 2 projects done as well.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Russell to share my spreadsheet with everybody else so you can see it.
Yeah.
It
No.
comes out to exactly $13,900,000 when you look at the final total amount, which is the ceiling we wanted to keep under. So.
Right. I agree.
I think what's happening in the spreadsheet though is that 13,900 is adding a correct number. The correct number is $6,259,974 for the total of the underserved, but it's taking as its amount for the unserved projects this 7,298. Gee, I don't. No, hold on. Let me see here. I'm sorry. I'm just having to figure out why these numbers aren't adding up for me, but they seem to have added up.
If you add up total project costs,
let me forward this to the commissioners first of all.
That would be helpful. First of all.
Let's see here.
I agree with Commissioner Hall on this. On the breakdown. I think.
I agree with it. It's just the numbers.
Keeping CenturyLink is not as urgent as keeping, say, a smaller place like Baca.
I agree with that. Yes, it's just if the numbers don't match up, then we have funding available. That's all.
Yeah, but throwing back in those 2 projects is just not what's good for the benefit of the situation we're in now. With regards to all these kids working at home, it's already hard enough on them, and without the proper broadband and internet, it just doesn't make sense to give it to the business versus the students at home working with family. So,
because if you throw in the $400,000 project, which is the 5th one on the list, we then go back over budget. But the 2 that we're excluding are around $35,000 and $40,000, which is considerably less than $370,000. So there's room in there to throw those 2 back in. But there's not room to add the next one.
So Russell, let's check the math. I understand the discussion, and actually I believe I agree with what Commissioner Bird's saying, but it depends on whether the math is right before we get into that discussion.
Yes, and I'm sorry. Is Commissioner Hall would seem to be right. The spreadsheet is designed so that this should add up.
Well,
but I'm looking at.
If I may.
Yes, please.
I think what Commissioner Hall did, I agree with the way she did it. I like it. But what she did is total project cost. If you add the total project costs up, you come up to 2.377 million. which is exactly where we want to be.
I did total funds requested, total funds requested. Yeah, that's total project cost, I guess.
Yeah.
That's total funds
funds request-
requested. Total funds requested is what I used.
It comes up short. But if you do the total project cost, it actually comes up let me get back to my calculator, 2.377 million. I think this is a great way to do it.
I think we're restricted to total funds requested because that's what we hand out. They request and we hand that out.
Right. I'm just thinking that the column you called for was column 4 rather than column 5 in your, and I don't see it, so I'm making a speculation, but the numbers work out that way.
Well, it was total funds requested column. That's what I'm saying. That's what I worked with. That's where I removed, you had to subtract from total funds requested and put it over, or copy and paste that amount over to the rightmost column, the final cost. And I did that with every item except the 2 CenturyLink projects, the Picacho Hill project. And then I started from the bottom up.
I actually
had to stop at the third one, after the third one, which is a CenturyLink one for the Tucumcari exchange.
Commissioner Hall, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do see the error now. If you go to line 38, the number that should have been carried over should have been the number from column E, which is the total amount requested for the Plateau Indian Hill Trail project, $761,489.
Oh, yes, right. I put in a smaller amount. I
carried
apologize.
over. Actually, was
right. That was the difference. So, okay. And that was why I was trying to talk to you earlier, because I wanted to ask you that. There was only sufficient money. I'm sorry. I apologize, everybody, because I forgot this part. I didn't carry over the whole amount because we didn't have it in our account. But what I did add in there was an amount that was like slightly over half of what they asked for. And the question in my mind was whether that was going to be commercially practicable for the company or not. And based on a conversation, I would guess I would base it on our conversation we had this morning. I had with Russell when he called me back, was that probably a company would not want to proceed unless they get the entire amount that they've requested from us. So yes.
Commissioner Hall, can I give a little clarification for the commissioners just to help them understand what's happening here?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah,
it's clear to them, really, actually.
It is.
Let's listen to Russell. Everyone
understand how it's working in the spreadsheet. I'm sorry. So what Commissioner Hall did was we talked about eliminating those bottom 3. She did that, and then in order to get to exactly $13.9 million, which if you look at column or row 45, the cell J45, Commissioner Hall got to exactly 13.9 million for that next project up, the 4th one up at row 38, Plateau, giving them just the amount that would plug the rest of the hole to get to 13.9, that 370,000. So that makes a lot of sense, but I don't know that Plateau would go forward with the project at that amount. I mean, it's something we could look into. It certainly makes sense to get the commission right to the 13.9, but they might be relying on, having a 75% match or something close to it. Just so the commission, we could inquire of Plateau on that, or the commission could decide, let's just cut. Let's cut that whole project, or cut another project that gets us closer.
It's closer.
So I'll let the commissioners know what the options are.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, those were my thoughts exactly. I just didn't get a chance to get that question answered last night, but the amount that is left over that I had ascribed to the Plateau project on line 38, I inserted was $370,042. So it does, if that isn't commercially practicable for Plateau Telecommunications to use to go forward with their project when they actually requested $761,500 as opposed to $370,000, then I was thinking it might more, that 370 overage could be applied to the next project in the list, which is a CenturyLink project, but it is not, it does have an educational purpose as well. And it reaches 183 people, and it's wireline. So, it would be, it's an expansion of an established infrastructure. So it looked like a good candidate. So I thought that would be the next project to fund, and that could be fully funded at their request level if it wasn't commercially, excuse me, if it wasn't commercially practicable for Plateau Telecommunications to use this $370,000. So, and I'd be satisfied with doing that. I agree with Commissioner Byrd that we should try to apply as funds to as many projects as possible.
Yes,
and I like Commissioner Hall's proposal there. If Plateau can't do that project with half the funds or part of the project, then drop down to the next project, which is a 200 and, we could go down to the next project that gives us the most connections, which is a CenturyLink project.
Yeah.
So quick suggestion here. Maybe for now, what we should do is ask our telecom department to follow up with Plateau, see what kind of answer we get, and then finalize next week based on the information we hear.
Can I make another proposal?
Sure. Go ahead.
We go ahead and set the order and just put an if-then statement in there. If Plateau can do it, then they get it. If they can't, then we go to the next complete project that falls within the budget.
Yeah, and that's very doable. We could write it like that, and ask. The order could also require Plateau to respond, to the order within a certain period of time as to whether they would go forward with the project with the $370,042, or if they would not go forward, then automatically, as a result of the if then in the order, then the CenturyLink project, Aztec Main Exchange at $276,000. Would be the one that would be removed.
Next in line.
Yes. So
you said Aztec, but it's actually Tucumcari Exchange.
Actually, well, I think the three at the bottom, the Tucumcari Exchange was under Commissioner Hall's proposal, would have to be eliminated. I think we're moving up.
Well, Aztec's already approved. In her list, Aztec is approved. It's the Plateau, the one below it, Indian Hill Trail, that she's cut in half. And then we're forced to ask, or then need to ask Plateau if that's a plausible solution for them. If they say no, then we go to the next one that was not approved, which would be the CenturyLink Tucumcari Exchange, which is a $250,501 project.
Oh, well, yeah, that actually, I guess, no, I meant to go, let's see. Yeah, you're right, Jeff. That's right. That is right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to go with Commissioner Byrd's proposal to reconsider
No, that's not right.
Tucumcari Exchange if Plateau cannot work out.
No, Mr. Chairman, listen, if I could just explain my project or my proposal.
Sure, go ahead.
It disallows it disallows the two non-education component projects, which are both CenturyLink Santa Teresa projects. It disallows the very expensive unserved one, which is the Picacho Health. And then it disallows, starting from the bottom up, line 41, Plateau Telecommunications, line 40, Baca Valley, and line 39, CenturyLink Tucumcari. It partially funds Plateau Telecommunications, next one on the list, number 38. And if that's not practicable for them, then they would be off the list, and we'd have to move upward to the Aztec Main Exchange program project, which is CenturyLink, to apply that
It's
remaining
approved
money.
on your list.
Commissioner Hall, I actually, I don't mean to interrupt, but I completely understand what Commissioner Byrd was saying now, and he's correct. Well, let me see if I can describe this accurately. So under Commissioner Hall's proposal, the bottom three projects would be eliminated, and then Plateau would be asked to go forward with the project at only $340,000 worth of funding instead of $761,000. If they could do that, then we'd be at exactly $13.9 million. If they can't do that, and they can't do the project at all, then their project will be eliminated.
Yes.
That gets rid of, that is $761,489 of a project that would be taken out. That leaves room to go back. In other words, to go down.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Grant the Tucumcari CenturyLink one. So Commissioner Berger,
Yeah. I do agree with you. I do.
And that outcome gives you $13,780,000. So going back to that would make a lot of sense too. So
yeah,
either you end up with exactly $13.9 million if Plateau can go forward with the partial payment of $370,000, or if they can't and the Plateau project is eliminated, then adding back the CenturyLink project, Tucumcari, gives you 13.78 million, which gets you very close to the 13.9 million, which is, I think probably one of the commission's purposes is to try to give away as much money as you can. If you can't get up to 13.9, this is pretty close.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's the 250,000 one. That's okay. That still leaves a now look though. Let's see if we're gonna.
So Commissioner Hall, if we do that, and I think it's a good way to go, frankly, is that would also leave room to add back those CenturyLink Santa Teresa projects. And Jeff, is that where you're headed with that?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Okay, terrific.
That's true, yes, because those are two small projects, and there's room there in the 13.78 to add those back as well. Okay, I see that. Okay.
So I'm going to check in with Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. Does this, where we're headed here, does this all make sense to you?
Yes, I would like to make a motion with Commissioner Byrd's proposal.
Okay.
That was...
Before we go there, I wanted to ask Commissioner Espinosa if she's on board or if there are any issues she sees outstanding.
I'm on board with the figures that Commissioner Hall has introduced. And I think Jeff is in favor of the same thing, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'll second Commissioner Vicente Aguilar's motion. Sorry.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to point out two things that I would be including in this order. So there's the if-then that we've described, whether Plateau could take a portion of the project award instead. And I think we could give Plateau, I think a week would be enough, I think, for them to decide whether they want to go forward. I'd give them a week to answer, and then that answer would have an automatic effect under the order as to.
Mr. Chair, Russell?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Why would you want to give them a week? I mean, something is better than nothing. Buy low, sell high, whatever. I mean, who's going to, in their right mind, turn down the money? I don't think they will, but, I think they need to act on it so this money can get distributed sooner than later. Why wait another week?
Well, because Commissioner Espinosa, like I said, these projects, they may not need a 75% match, but all these projects are projects that the companies came in and said, we can do this project. It makes sense for us if we get this 75% match. And if we give them significantly less, they might not want to go forward with the project. So it isn't because they have to contribute.
I'm ready to vote. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm ready to vote.
Just
Mr. Chair, the other thing I wanted to say is that The only other contingency that I would be placing in this order is that one of the projects under this order that will be granted is the project of NTUA Wireless LLC. That is currently pending for the hearing date. Actually hasn't been set yet, but it hasn't been designated as an ETC for broadband program purposes yet. But it would be conditional in the order. It would be conditioned on the ETC designation.
Understood.
Okay.
Sounds fair.
So we have a motion and a second, and I think we're ready for a vote. Michael?
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Espinoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
and Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioners, the motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
And thank you, Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Byrd, for taking us through that discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Hall, for your spreadsheet.
Oh, my pleasure.
So we've got item 8, public comment.
Mr. Chairman, nobody signed up.
Okay, communications with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Hope all is well. Hope everybody's doing fine. Just a couple of quick things I wanted to share with you all is in your email inbox, you should have a copy of an executive memorandum regarding the eviction and PRC office space in the foreseeable future. So when you have a moment, please read that. I don't want to spend too much time here at this meeting. Chairman has spoke about it in the past, so that you have an executive memorandum in your inbox. Just a friendly reminder to those that are listening and the audience here on Zoom, open enrollment continues through the month of October. So please, if you haven't already, friendly reminder to get your benefits submitted for next calendar year. Some good news has been shared with the agency from Renee Kepler, our HR Bureau Chief, regarding annual leave. Obviously, due to the pandemic, our oversighting agencies, such as the State Personnel Office, have extended our ability to use annual leave through June, July 2021. Obviously, because of travel restrictions and the pandemic, people aren't able to exhaust their annual leave. And so they've taken that into consideration and have extended that deadline. So that's good news. The other good news is employees will be awarded 2 personal leave days effective January 1, 2021 that are made available for the calendar year. So a couple of good notes from our HR Bureau regarding that. And really, that's all I had to share with you all. Everybody's normal. We seem to be just moving along quite fine. Everybody is busy as ever, as you can imagine, with all the hearings and deadlines quickly approaching. So that's all I had, Mr. Chairman. I'm available for questions.
Okay, any questions from the commission? All right, communications with commissioners.
Nada. Happy Halloween.
Rah, team.
Okay, I'll just one item I'll touch on is I sent out an email to the commission, and I think there's a bunch of legislative items that probably all 5 of us would support. And
I support that. I saw it.
And so I'm asking for input. I put a preliminary list together based on what some people told me, but please feel free to add suggestions. And if there are any items that you can't support on the list that I've sent out, just say that and we'll cross them off. And let's see if we can, put together a list that we can proactively push the legislature in a direction before all the legislation is written. And please, when you respond only to me, because we have rolling quorum issues. I'll just simply recompile the list and send it out, and then we can talk about it at an open meeting in the next few weeks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
I think you might have skipped over communications with general counsel.
Yes.
And Russell, you might have an item. I believe.
Yes, I
Oh,
do.
okay, sorry there. Sorry, Mike.
So
It was intentional.
Go ahead, ascribe anything to me you want.
Mhm.
It was
Russell
completely
can speak.
subconscious, but you know, it was a strong subconscious kind of desire.
So Michael, do you have anything?
No, go ahead, Russell.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and then I believe Hans has something as well with regard to today's public comment hearing in the fire marshal rulemaking. But the matter that I have to address with the commission is something that was brought up to me by Mike Ripperger. He was contacted, and I sent the commission an email about this on Monday. The Federal Bureau of Indian Affairs contacted telecom staff to be interviewed regarding particular ETC issues. And we have Mike available if you have any questions. Mike wanted to make sure that the commission was aware before he agreed to any interviews. It concerns this is reading their email right now. The research question is, why is the ETC designation not more accessible to tribal nations, and what pathways are available to tribally owned ICTs seeking to overcome existing ETC regulatory requirement hurdles? For instance, one of the entities that was discussed today in the broadband program matter, NTUA Wireless, I believe is and Mike might be able to correct me on this, is half owned, I believe, by the Navajo Nation, and there are some special FCC rules for ETC designations with regard to tribally owned entities that would normally go, say, to a state commission for federal lifeline designation. They can opt to go to the feds for that. Mike, are you on? I don't know if I'm really capturing the whole essence of this issue. Or is Mike? Are you? Did I get that?
Yeah, thank you, Russell. Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yeah, I was contacted by them. You could see the email chain, and it seems like it's a combination of fact finding and then, them wanting to get maybe opinions about maybe some form of recommendations they would make out of a report. Now, I asked them a clarification about, our dealings with tribally owned ETCs is limited here. We do have an active case. However, I was leery about, obviously, about committing because I don't want to be talking for the commission about what their opinions might be as to, where, what are regulatory hurdles or where should they go or what, we have we've dealt with, in my knowledge, two tribally owned entities that are ETCs. One is Maddie, who consented to commission regulation as a rural telephone cooperative, and then NTUAW. And NTUAW did get ETC designation directly through the federal government, not us, for CAF Phase 2 auction support and lifeline support. So anyway, I don't want to get into details. I would say that if we were to speak to BIA, I would want Russell there at a minimum, or someone representing the commission itself, not just advocacy staff, so that I'm not straying into any areas I shouldn't be talking about. And second of all, I would prefer to keep any comments I have to the BIA to more fact-based issues and less, I can't speak for the commission about where they feel this should go or recommendations as to, regulatory hurdles or where do we think that ETC designations should go. The issue of ETC designations is actually somewhat an active issue on the federal level. And it's been bandied around a bit and NARUC's got involved. So I just in caution, I spoke to John Reynolds about it. I said, I'm not comfortable, obviously, just setting a time with them. The commission should know about this. And so I'm setting it out to the commission, and the commission can decide whether or not I should be speaking to the BIA about these issues. And at a minimum, I would recommend that if that does happen, that someone representing the commission on an advisory level itself be present during that conversation. And I would limit my comments to more fact-based comments and less any form of suggestions about where that should go. Thank you.
Any comments from commissioners on this?
I just think, Mr. Chair, that this is Valerie, that he shouldn't have to do anything he's not comfortable with, because we often put our staffers in bad positions. And so, yeah, I don't think he should be forced to do anything he's uncomfortable with.
Russell, your thoughts?
What Commissioner Espinosa said. I think this isn't something that that staff would be doing to fulfill a duty for the commission. So if the commission just says, don't bother because it could raise issues and could be difficult to navigate, or it could have unintended consequences, then I think that makes perfect sense. If the commission wants Mike to do this, then I can be present and try to make sure that there isn't something that would be interpreted as a position of the commission with regard to what the FCC should do or the BIA should do. I can do that, but it makes perfect sense also to just say, sorry, we won't participate.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I was just about to call on you. I figured you had a particular interest in this one. Go ahead.
I'm gonna enlighten the commissioners on this issue. On the Navajo Nation, there's telephone companies that totally ignored the right-of-way issues. And they built their infrastructure, they built their business, ignoring the rules coming from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And their violations for the right-of-way issue is escalating number by number. And we don't deal with the right-of-way issues at the Public Regulation Commission. Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Chair, what I would like to propose is that if Mike and Russell can send a response letter, that they should be talking directly with Bureau of Indian Affairs, legal counsel, because if they need to reach out to the field representatives from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they have the inside information which companies are violating the rules.
So a little clarification, when you say they, who are you referring to?
Stephanie, the lady that wrote the letter from the Interior Department.
So the Interior Department should be speaking directly with Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Right, because we don't have the jurisdiction on the Bureau of Indian Affairs decision.
Okay.
There's a clear line. State regulations is what we do. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, they have their own rules.
Russell, does it sound like that's a letter we should be sending off to them?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I don't see any reason not to send the letter. I'm not extremely familiar with what the Bureau of Indian Affairs involvement would be with regard to these rights of way issues, but it's perfectly fine for us to send that letter. I think that may be a separate issue from what Mike is being asked to do. I think the interview, and Mike, you might want to chime in here, would be about specifically jurisdiction over ETC issues, over who designates the tribally owned entities for ETCs, for ETC purposes. Is that right, Mike? And Mike, you're yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that's sort of my understanding It has to do with the ETC designation process. And I don't know, based on their communication, I don't know if there's some confusion on their part, but to start rendering opinions about what it should be, it gets into, to me, rather tenuous territory for me as an advocate, because number one, we have an open docket, and two, there could be ramifications that end up in that quote unquote research report that gets sent out somewhere else, quoting the commission or me or something that may, like you said, may have unintended consequences. Fact finding is one thing, opinions are another. So that's, I would agree with Russell. That seems like what they're looking at.
So I've got a little bit different perspective than Commissioner Espinosa. And I'm thinking that if you were to meet, talking facts for me wouldn't be an issue. Talking different directions you might go without making any recommendations, but just identifying options, I would be very comfortable with you and Russell doing, if you care to do that. And it might be helpful to the commission. So, so long as you're not taking any positions and just kind of laying out facts and laying out options, without taking any position on those options, I'm perfectly comfortable with you guys developing that information. But if you're not comfortable doing it, then I'm fine with that too.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Hall.
Well, I was just reading the initial letter from Stephanie, and I can understand where might have some concern. There's a sentence. So their request to talk to us is in connection with a program, a student program and a graduate school at George Washington University. And there's a group of students who are looking specifically into the eligible telecommunication carrier application process for tribally owned telecommunications companies. They were hoping to speak with you, and I think this letter is directed to Mike, about your experience with this process as an approving agency, NMPRC, advocate for improving this process, NTTA. I don't quite understand that sentence, but when they say advocate for improving the process, I don't know that we're doing that right now necessarily. And I can see if Mike is concerned that he'd be put in a position to try to advocate for an improvement in the process, that's where we would draw the line. But as you, and then they go on to say though, which is something that you just said was, they want to know why the ETC designation is not more accessible to tribal nations and what pathways are available to tribally owned ICTs seeking to overcome existing ETC regulatory requirement hurdles. So they want to know what are the options. They also want to know why is it not more accessible? So those seem like factual answers. If we limited it to that, but not be in a position to advocate, which they seem to be referring to as well, that at least get them somewhere and we'd be able to help. But that's the context in which they're asking this question. Yeah. It's not the BIA itself wanting to know. They're just being asked.
You just muted yourself, Cynthia. You just went on to mute.
Sorry. Okay. So I just wanted to add that clarification.
So anyway, there's some direction from the commission. Anybody else have thoughts to offer? And I would just say, you know, Mike, use your judgment based on what you just heard. And, you know, if there are ways that we can help people understand how to connect and get ETCs, or at least explain options they might explore, I think that's the commission being helpful. And certainly I think we want to be helpful, particularly in those tribal areas where they've got so many challenges. So if there's a way you can be helpful without compromising the commission, then I'm fine with that, so long as you are.
I'd like to hear from Russell.
Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, that what the chairman said is perfectly fine. I can be present if Michael is obviously be present by Zoom if Michael is interviewed. If Mike is interviewed, and to keep away from advocating any particular positions. And Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, with regard to the letter that you proposed, that's something I can simply work with you separately on, because that might be a letter that comes from you and goes to the same part of the BIA or a different part of the BIA. We can look into that as a separate but somewhat related issue. That's fine with me.
I also like to hear from Mike after hearing out from the commissioners. What is your immediate thought right now?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, are you asking that I speak now?
Well, they've asked you for a 1-hour interview, and you also suggested if that's the path that you're going to take, you would like Russell Fisk to be included. But my question is, are you going to accept the 1-hour interview, or are you going to defer with a formal letter saying that the Bureau of Indian Affairs is a proper place because I don't know. It may be the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but I'm going to let Russell decide which is the appropriate agency.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, commissioners, I think that if Russell is there during the conversation, there may be some confusion on their part about fact. We can certainly work on straightening that out and then talking to them about what has actually transpired here with tribally owned telecommunications carriers and ETC designations. That is actually limited. And then if they start to get into areas about discussions about improvements or that sort of stuff, I would probably not get into a lot of it. I would not be inclined because commissioners may have a different opinion about what that should be. And we have active processes here around that. And so, we could probably help out on a fact basis if it comes down to the commission's opinion on processes. I would probably defer to Russell. And it sounds like the issue of problems with the rights of way may be something separate that Russell can work with you on, because it sounds like there's some problems in that area.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wouldn't like to put our staff members in this area. They're seeking who's going to advocate for the tribes, and we're not the proper agency. We regulate them, and
Okay.
I understand that. So that's my response.
Okay, thank you. So, any other comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Valerie. Real quick, I do want to go back to commissioner comments now that you're done with that discussion. Just real quick to say that I know we've been in the media and you're talking about legislation, and we've been in the media quite a bit getting hammered. I do want to say for the record that I am encouraging people not to support the constitutional amendment that will allow the governor to appoint commissioners in the future. And so I have been getting a lot of calls. I just wanted to put that on the record since, it's getting a lot of press. So thank you, sir. And that's all I have.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to go back to that issue. I guess I feel like I have a clear instruction from Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. Sounded like she would prefer that neither Mike nor I participate in the interview process. Whereas, Mr. Chairman, from you and Commissioner Hall, I heard more that we would participate selectively and try to avoid positions that involve advocating policies.
Yeah. And Russell and Michael, I'm not intending to direct you on this in any way at all. I'm just follow your heart. You've heard the input from all the commissioners. It sounds like two of our commissioners certainly would prefer that you don't talk. And if you decide not to do that, that's fine too. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, when you say two commissioners, you're including me in that. I wasn't necessarily saying that. I was just trying to clarify the context.
Yeah, I was talking about Commissioner Vicente Aguilar and Commissioner Espinosa.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, I would just point out, it was the BIA who was asking for our involvement. This person is from BIA, Stephanie Henning. So in any case.
Commissioner Fishman, this is Hans Muller.
Yeah, go ahead, Hans.
Thank you. Just one last note from comments from Office of General Counsel. I would like to remind the commissioners that coming up at 2 o'clock today, if you are interested in spending the entire day on Zoom, we have a public comment hearing for case 2105 FM, which is the fire and smoke damper issue for the fire marshal. I believe I had an indication that one commissioner might be in attendance, but if you are intending on attending or would like to preside, please let me know that before 2 o'clock today. Currently,
yes,
we
Hans,
have
Commissioner Espinosa. Yeah, Hans, my phone's about to die. I've got to charge it again, but I do want to participate. That's been an issue near and dear to me, and even though they are being removed, I still would like to partake. So if you could just send me the same way Jason sends me the number, because I don't have that number to call in.
Sure, I will make sure that information gets to you. Currently, we have about 38 people signed up. But unless the commissioner indicates a wish to preside over it, I will preside over the public comment.
Yes, great, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. One final comment. I wanted to just thank Eugene for the terrific job he did on that spreadsheet. Really helped us make the decision on those projects. So thank you, Eugene.
Agreed.
Are we ready to adjourn?
I just want to thank Eugene as well. It was a pleasure looking at that spreadsheet. It was very clear and very easy to manipulate. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, commissioners, I thank you. I did a little, well, as you can see, I tried to make it as interactive as I possibly could with all the information that I possibly could relate on that to help everyone out to make this decision. So by the essence of staff and myself, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for dealing with us. I know it was a headache for a while, but you did it and it's all done. And thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Espinosa, likewise. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and I always forget. Well, we're ready to adjourn, right? Okay.
So be it. Thanks.
We're adjourned.